So, since the programme was published, the political situation in this country has changed dramatically. Boris Johnson has become Prime Minister, Parliament has been prorogued, and some of the Conservative Party's most influential members have been expelled. One thing we can be sure about is that Britain, or the UK, is in uncharted territory, not simply on the issue of whether and how we leave the European Union, but also on the state of our politics and the potentially radical realignments that are in the air. So, this debate is going to focus on how we navigate our uncertain future. And to help us as we embark upon this journey, we have a stellar panel. We have Natalie Bennett, former leader of the Green Party, who'll be known to many of you here because she's been enthusiastic taking part of these debates. Owen Smith, who's been a Labour MP since 2010, challenged Jeremy Corbyn for the Labour leadership in 2016. And Claire Fox, a libertarian speaker and writer who now sits as a Brexit Party MEP. So I'm going to ask you, Claire, if you could start and answer the question, where is Britain heading?
So it's tied up with where I'm heading. So I just wanted to say something about myself. I'm a left leaver. I was the director of the Academy of Ideas. The Academy of Ideas runs a big festival called the Battle of Ideas Festival, similar to this festival at the Barbican every year. And I never, ever wanted to be an elected politician. I had no aspirations to be. But I think that when I think about where Britain is heading, it's, I think, a different landscape, a bit like my own personal landscape, because Leave voters take all shapes and sizes, and I think that there is a danger that we have caricatured them and that we underestimate what will happen if the Brexit vote is not delivered. I wanted to also say that it was a very exciting time in 2016 when people voted in the European referendum. It was a very political time. I'd been worried about youth apathy before that, and then suddenly everybody was discussing politics, really came to life. People voted in good faith and in huge, huge numbers, and any concern we had about the electoral system not being taken seriously was overturned by that. And if it had been exacted as leaving the EU, as was told by the people, then I think that that would have been a very positive move. But I think that what's happened in the last 3.5 years leaves me fearful about the state of democracy. Because not only has the vote not occurred, but also, and at the moment it's really intensified, anyone who voted Leave is treated with utter contempt. They've been called racist and fascist, the rise of the far right, as though the 1930s are upon us. People in professions have to be secret Brexiteers, can't come out and admit that they voted with the largest side in a referendum. And I think that demonisation of Leave voters means that where we are now is very serious and where we're going. I didn't agree with the proroguing of Parliament, but I do think that democracy is on the line. And on the night that Parliament was prorogued, parliamentarians and MPs held up signs saying that they'd been silenced. I did laugh. They haven't shut up for 3.5 years. And what they've been saying for those 3.5 years is we're not going to listen to the public and we're going to do whatever it takes, in order to actually undermine what the public requested and demanded. And their authority is based on the will of ordinary voters and the electorate. And I fear that ignoring that puts universal franchise, the whole of democracy, it questions every institution, and it puts us in a very interesting but dangerous place, not because of Brexit, but because of the failure to deliver Brexit. Loads of great questions to discuss, so I look forward to engaging with my fellow panellists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. So, where is Britain heading? Owen Smith.
Thank you, Sean. Well, it's a good start to a debate that I disagree with just about every word that Claire has just said. I think anybody who says they know where we're heading right now is a liar and a scoundrel. But I do think we can say that we are collectively going through what looks to me to be a bit of a midlife crisis. And if you doubt that, just consider the facts of the last few days in our extraordinary topsy-turvy politics. And the Labour Party's in Brighton, where I'll be going later in the week, marching against ourselves again on Brexit. We dusted off the ice pick to try and do in Tom Watson earlier in the week and succeeded in stabbing it squarely in our own collective foot. The Liberal left has a new hero, and he's not in the Labour Party. He's Dominic Grieve, a bloke who wears three-piece tweed suits and who only ever went on one protest march until recently, and that was, and this is absolutely true, as he told me when we marched together for a people's vote, it was in favour of getting rid of the ban on fox hunting. Joe Swinson is making Lazarus look like a sort of crap entry into Britain's Got Talent. With her renaissance of the Liberal Democrat Party. And we've got a Prime Minister and a leader of the House of Commons who are more memes than men, who don't even take themselves seriously, it seems, when talking about politics. So that's just a few facts that illustrate what an extraordinary time we live in. But to be serious for a moment, I do think there is a way in which you can see the underpinnings of this extraordinary time. In reflecting about this and knowing that Claire was on the panel, I turned to another lapsed communist, formerly of this parish, Eric Hobsbawm, who said in writing about the age of extremes, not the current age of extremes that we live in, but an earlier age of extremes, that it was a period that revealed the innate flaw in liberal democracy, and that, he said, was its susceptibility to the virus of nationalism, ethno-nationalism, nativism, the support of our people over the others. And I think that underpins much of the crisis we have in our country today, both on the left and on the right. And I think it's the biggest thing that we need to try and engage in and with to resolve it. I think Brexit is in many respects a function and a product of that rise of nativism. I think the talk of sovereignty and the importance of will and instinct and technocracy over rationale and over reason are all echoes of an earlier age. Claire, lampoons the notion that we're seeing some of those or hearing some of those echoes of the 1930s in our modern politics. I don't think that's something to be dismissed at all. I think when we have a Prime Minister who talks about pickaninnies and people with watermelon smiles, phrases that you can't imagine being even on the fringes of the Tory party, other than on the lips of Enoch Powell 10, 20, 30 years ago, but now coming out of the mouth of the man who is the Prime Minister of our country, I think that speaks to a very dark age that we're living through. And when we have a period in which the Prime Minister can seemingly prorogue Parliament with impunity, abandon Parliament in order to stifle debate, albeit only for a short period of a few days, but with very little public disquiet. Indeed, if you look at some of the polls in certain parts of the electorate, significant support for that supremely anti-democratic act. I think in that era and with those sorts of languages being deployed and with the forces that I see of enlightenment and social democracy cowed and weak, we are in a dangerous time in our politics, and one where I don't think there is an easy route through.
Thank you very much, Owen. Where is Britain heading, Natalie?
Well, I think you've just heard two very pessimistic accounts of where Britain's heading. I'm going to fulfil my role that I often fulfil on panels, whereas I'm going to be the optimist. Because where Britain is headed for is massive change. The status quo is profoundly unstable, and that's really great news. It's great news for the people of Grimsby, it's great news for the people of South Wales, it's great news for the whole country. Now, what that change will be, I very much hope and am pretty confident that we will remain as part of the European Union, and that's what I'm working very hard to achieve. However, I do not accept at all people who criticise people who voted leave in 2016, who suggest that they didn't know what they were doing, or that they were deluded or misled or didn't understand. People were voting for change, voting to say our current situation is intolerable and our current voting system, electoral system, doesn't allow us to make change, so we're going to do anything we possibly can to shake things up.
For more debates, talks and interviews, subscribe today to the Institute of Art and Ideas at IAI TV.